The creek and goes back up. It goes this direction.
We're down there.
You leaving or you gonna join us? We're going up the road right now. Chalmer set our orders to swing around with our right resting on the creek bottom, which we're basically in. Drive the enemy before us toward Pittsburgh and accordingly move forward, advancing most rapidly on the right and gradually wheeling the whole line. Trying to hook, of course, the Union position. In this order, we were marching when our skirmishers developed the enemy concealed behind a fence. That's up at McCullers Field, and thick undergrowth with an open field or orchard in his front. The width of the orchard, 350, 400 yards. It was behind it was a very steep and perfectly abrupt hill, which we're going to see later on, at the foot of which ran a small branch. At the base of this hill ran the Pittsburgh Road that we're on. Skirting the orchard is base and turning to the right, running alongside it, the orchard being on the right of the road. The ground from the branch to the fence, this is great, where the enemy was concealed, from the branch to the fence, where the enemy was concealed, was a gradual ascent. And our line was in full view of the enemy from the time it crossed the stream, which we just crossed. The 9th Mississippi was now on the left, so-and-so. I ordered up Gage's battery, which until now had not been engaged, and put in position on the hill above the branch. So that's Gage's position up there. My line moved on across the orchard in almost perfect order and splendid style. Heavy fire was opened on us. As soon as this column was fairly in sight, coming over the opposite hill, Gage's battery opened a well-directed fire, and the infantry made a charge in the front, and basically we drove them away. So ammunition was exhausted, and we took a rest. So that's the basic idea. Chalmers is going to move forward. He's going to engage the 54th Ohio in McCullers Field here. And then he's going to basically engage the 55th Illinois a little bit farther up. And both of those units are then going to fall back across this ravine that he was just talking about and take that position where the monuments are now. Anybody been to the monuments, 55th Ohio, or 55th Illinois and 54th Ohio? We're going to go to those next and cross over those positions, look at Chalmers' attack. And then from there, we're going to head over and eat lunch. What time is it? Is it 12 or
12:15,
12-ish? Okay, we're perfect timing. So we'll do that, but then we're going to come back and see the area, of course, restart the hike where Chalmers drives Stewart's back across that really deep ravine, and it's where one Mississippian talks about it's like shooting fish in a barrel, you know. Another Mississippian talks about he picked out a Yankee and he got him about where the suspenders crossed him on his back there. That's what he aimed at, you know. So it's pretty brutal there, but we'll see that as we go forward. So let's head on.
Caller.
Facing more kind of northeastward, and we'll walk across. It's private land just on the other side. The 54th Ohio tablet is kind of in some shrubbery. Y'all ever been over there to see it? It's kind of in a just a shrubbery. Yeah, right in the driveway. But we'll go over there and see it. But all this, well, I mean, it's park land. The tablet's on park land. The field, you can't really tell a whole lot about the field. It's non-historic now. It's would have been much larger in kind of the length of the road that we came at this point. But and two, you know, this is right. There's just, if you look on the trailhead map, the old one, there's just a real little section here, and I wonder if this tablet wouldn't be a little bit better positioned farther to the south a little bit, but that would have been off park land, and you know, it's better probably to put it on park land because then you can take care of it, just like we were talking about in terms of the tablets up there. Of course, you can't get those anywhere near park lane. You had to put them off, but this one probably maybe should be just a little bit farther to the south. But anyway, this is where the action takes place. Then Chalmers will move up. There's another tablet we'll see in just a little bit farther to the front when they hit the 32nd or the 54th Ohio and 55th Illinois, and we'll cross a couple of more small ravines between here and there. So let's go over and look at the 54th Ohio down in the shrubs. But is everybody? Okay, that's the 54th Ohio. We'll continue on to kind of the second position of 54th Ohio.
One near and dear to my heart because
This is the 54th Ohio Monument, the Zouave Regiment, of course. And the next in line up the road to the west is going to be the 55th Illinois, and they're the ones that Chalmers will hit and really be stalled at this point. And I see a lot of huffing and puffing. You can understand why they're stalled at this point. I mean, we've been, at this point, they have been at, say, 11 or 12 during the day. They've been going for 7, 8 hours here. And so you've seen what they've been going through. I mean, so they're starting to get winded. And these are pretty substantial positions we've got. You came up that hill. The 54th Ohio will send 3 companies actually farther on down the hill. If you look, we're on kind of a ridge that kind of tapers off into the valley that we saw earlier, this valley of Lick Creek. And they'll send 3 companies down there to protect that flank as Chalmers tries to get around that flank, as we've read over and over and over. So Chalmers is pretty much stalled here, and from about 11 till about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Chalmers and Jackson are both stalled. In this position, we'll actually see Chalmers' tablet a little farther up, and that's another one kind of I wonder if they got it at a certain point, it maybe should be a little bit farther to the east. But due to land purchases and all that, they might have put it there and just never moving, although the land is a little better now. But that's the general situation from about 11 o'clock or so to 2. Chalmers will say actually that they'll stop and rest. Let me see. Gage's battery opened a well-directed fire, so and so and so and so. After this fight, our ammunition was exhausted, and the wagons being some distance behind. Wondering why they're behind. We lost some time before it was replenished. As soon, however, as the ammunition could be distributed, we moved on with the right resting on the edge of the Tennessee River bottom with the same order as above. When we'd gone about a quarter of a mile, we again encountered the enemy in strong position on a hill with a deep ravine in its front. The ravine we just came up. And a very stubborn fight ensued in which we lost many gallant men. So and so and so and so. Here again, Gage's battery did good service, though it was some time before it could be brought into position. Owing to the rough nature of the ground and the want of roads, I here take occasion, this is what I was looking for earlier, to say that I cannot speak too highly of the energy and skill and labor displayed by the men of this battery throughout the day in cutting their way through a thickly wooded country over ravines and hills almost impassable to ordinary wagons. After about an hour's hard fighting, the enemy again retreated, leaving many of his dead on the field. Probably a little longer than an hour, but that's what he says. So that's the story here. As we walk along, anybody ready for lunch? Man, I'm ready for lunch. Mona's do that.
Nap time.
Mona's vehicle is just up at the Penn Hospital site. We'll walk up there. That's not part of Chalmers' route. We'll be on Jackson's front at that time. But then we'll take back off and get back on Chalmers' route after lunch. Any instructions? This will be the only time that they can peel off if they're tired.
Bathroom break.
Bathroom break if you've got to go to the visitor
Jim's
center.
Jim's going to ferry people to go to the visitor center.
You can go to the visitor center. Of
If
course,
you don't want to use the woods potty.
Yeah, you can go out in the woods if you are so minded.
desired.
So. All right. Any other instructions or anything? All right, let's walk up. Of course, we came by the 55th Illinois Monument, and I didn't really see any reason to go all the way back to the 54th Ohio. They're just down that direction, 55th Illinois here. Chalmers hits both, and so really we would be on the left flank of Chalmers' brigade as we move forward. About 2 o'clock or so, they're finally able to move Stewart's brigade back. The Jackson's brigade has already hit the 71st Ohio. They flee across this ravine. The 54th Ohio, 55th Illinois hold out just a little bit longer, but they finally fall back as well and run out of ammunition and so on. It's out in here, of course, that you hear all these stories about the Illinoisans and so on as they're retreating from McCulloch's Field, forming these squares. Oscar Malmberg is the lieutenant colonel that's in charge of the 55th Illinois, and it's funny listening to the soldiers describe how he thinks that everything that when you take a position, it should be in the position of a square, which of course is, y'all know what a square is, I guess, don't you? It's defense for cavalry. When you're attacked by cavalry, it's kind of like circling your wagons when you're you're out west against the Indians and so on. So they form several squares and so on, but finally they have to fall back across this ravine. This is the big ravine that I was talking about, where they basically shooting fish in a barrel and shooting the guy with his where his suspenders cross and all that. Stewart will fall back. They'll be caught down in that ravine. The Confederates, Jackson's brigade a little bit farther to the west, Chalmer's brigade here, will inflict heavy casualties on that brigade. They will ultimately scamper away, and Chalmers and company will continue forward. Let me read to you just a little bit of what he's talking about here. Talks about the gunboats throwing some shells in here and so on. Near as I could judge of the position of affairs, our troops were then in a line of battle running from south to north, which shows you how disoriented he is, and facing east or a little north of east. My line was running from east to west and facing north, moving at a double quick. Now let's remember this. Double quick, we can try this if you want to, over several ravines and hills. You know what double quick is, don't you? That's pretty much at a run. Over several ravines and hills, we came upon the enemy and attacked him on his flank. Now that's getting into later action up on Loman's position where we get to the next tablet. So we're going to take these several ravines and hills at the double quick. No, not seriously at the double quick. Not this close after lunch anyway. But we'll take them at probably the quarter halftime click or quick or whatever. Slow motion quick. But anyway, that's where we're...
The biggest trees and stuff.
But first, Tim said that's a natural spring.
That's a double quick.
At 4 p.m. We are, I just used my finger this close. 396 right here, which Chalmer says move forward across. Seriously, you remember him talking about over the hills and ravines and all that? We've come over several of those. And he's trying to outflank the enemy, of course, and this is his position about 4 p.m. Now what he's attacking is this line right here, and that's held by Jacob Lawman, which is a member of Hurlbut's division, which has fought most all the day over in the Peach Orchard area. When Hurlbut moves forward, he moves forward with Nelson Williams, and Lawman, his 3rd Brigade Beach, of course, goes over to aid Sherman. By the latter part of the action in Sarah Bell's cotton field, when Johnson makes his attack at 2:30 and all that, Hurlbut falls back to a position just north of the Peach Orchard, and then ultimately to a larger line in South Wicker Field, where he positions artillery and what he can. He takes Lawman's entire brigade, 4 regiments, out and moves them, of course, to the other side of the road to hold that critical left flank that has been held, of course, by Stewart's brigade all along. But by this time, Stewart has said, I'm out of here, I'm out of ammunition, I've been shot to pieces, I don't know where the 71st Ohio is, I've got just very few men and I'm gone. So Hurlbut has to cover that critical flank between the river road and the river, or at least the ravines reaching to the river. So he'll move Lawman over here. They also get some reinforcements from some of Sweeney's people that have been held in reserve in the Hornet's Nest over there. Trying to think which regiment it is. The 50th is already over here. This is the 57th Illinois that's been moved forward, and they take position in this line amid Hurlbut's position, Lawman's position, and that's what Chalmers is trying to get on the flank. And in fact, Chalmers in here talks about double quick over several ravines and hills. We came from the enemy and attacked him on his flank. This was the 4th fight in which my brigade had been engaged during the day, and after severe firing of some duration, finding the enemy stubbornly resisting, I rode back for General Jackson's brigade, which was lying down in reserve in my rear and to my left. That's back that direction. I did not see General Jackson, but finding Colonel Wheeler, and somebody was asking about Colonel Wheeler earlier today, called upon him to take up the fight, which he did with promptness and vigor. Sent a staff officer to command my brigade to lie down and rest until they receive further orders. Why in the world do they need rest? Good land, you know, what have been over. It's interesting looking at the federal accounts here. Some of the 57th Illinois folks and some of Lawman's folks talks about they look and they see the Mississippi Tigers, they call them, coming out of the ravine. And that's the ravine we just came out of, with flags unfurled and marching as if on a parade ground. So they still got a good bit of retain their organization, and Chalmers, of course, will hit them on the flank then. Lawman and Hurlbut's larger force will pull out about 4 and will move backwards, of course, to Cloudfield, try to make a new line at Cloudfield. That doesn't work, and ultimately they'll go into this last line of defense behind Deal Branch, near to Pittsburgh Landing. That's when Chalmers, of course, will move forward and will continue to shift to the east, and will get in the rear of the Hornet's Nest prisoners, or the Hornet's Nest defenders, and will help capture the area of the Hornet's Nest there, which we're going to next. So I think what we'll do, y'all are looking kind of bedraggled a little bit, we'll go over to Lawman's line right here, just kind of show you some of the time and space issues that we got going on here. Also, that'll get us from going through this pretty big ravine again right there. We got plenty of ravines. Don't be sad. We got plenty of ravines to go through here on out. But that'll get us kind of over the head of that ravine a little bit, and then we'll head on over to where we help capture the Hornet's Nest. Any questions here?
What's bedraggled mean? Look at me. Yeah, really.
Picture, word picture. We'll talk about the Hornet's Nest when we get there. Continue on down. This used to not be part of the park either. This is what's called the Pew Track, or the Pew Place. Not the Pew Place. What's the name? The Pew Place is south of the Hamburg Purdy Road. Anyway, it was the name's right on the tip of my tongue. At any rate, it was bought later on, and this was a road that went down into that area. You go all the way to this river. Pittsburgh Landing and all that, where they dug these guys out, but their maps of Fort Henry, you know, where they dug these folks out, all that. Pretty cool.
I have been in the valley though. I want to.
Tell them that's a condition of you coming back, or you're going to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
The Grand Canyon that I was talking about, and if you look at how they're positioned, where were we at Chalmers Brigade? It was kind of that direction. I think I hear Boy Scouts, but So you can see how they were on the flank, because this is the end of the line, and the line kind of curves back a little bit, so they have refused the line a little bit, and Chalmer still gets on their flank and tries to come around. It's at that point, of course, that that he calls a halt and gives them some rest, and but then they'll move right back up. By the time they get to the Hornet's Nest, Jackson's brigade, and so on, General Bragg called out, "Bring up Chalmer's brigade." I rode back immediately to where I had ordered my men to halt and found that they had not understood the orders and had pressed on after the retreating foe. Those Mississippians are bad news, I'm telling you. You want something done, call the Mississippians. I rode back immediately to where I had ordered my men to halt. We were talking about that. Riding rapidly after them, I reached them just after the enemy had raised the white flag in a number. The enemy had surrendered to the 9th Mississippi, who was then some distance in advance of any other Confederate troops. Colonel Shaw surrendered. They said so-and-so surrendered to Whitfield and so on. At any rate, that's that. All right, let's head right around kind of the head of this ravine, so we don't have to go right through the middle of it, and we'll go capture the Hornet's Nest real quick.
Chickasaw were unable to follow orders.
If you'll notice his,
Oops.
you didn't see that part right here. I don't know what that was. Some kind of epoxy or glue or...
It just
What
fell.
was that?
I know.
Talk about preserving history.
Did you get that on video?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
That's some kind of epoxy.
Yeah, it's not actual. Yeah, it's just glue.
So I'm forgiven.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay.
Just had to inspect
Where's the
it.
closest federal penitentiary?
Probably sealing it.
Hey, can he teach class in the penitentiary? No.
If I can get online, I can.
Teaching online, there's no reason why.
Position is facing pretty much due west. This is because they have wheeled around, as we talked about, connected with some. In fact, Chalmers talks about it. About a quarter of an hour after the surrender, some of our troops, supposed to be of General Polk's division, made their appearance on the opposite side of the surrendered camps and were of great difficulty prevented from firing into the prisoners. The cavalry very soon arrived, and the prisoners were turned over them and were carried to the rear. That's the link up in the rear, of course, that occurs, and you can look across and see Trebu's tablet over on the Corinth Road. I don't see it right now, but trust me, it's over there. So the thing links up in behind, of course, the Hornet's Nest, and they help capture several of them. Chalmers talks about Colonel Shaw of the 14th Iowa, senior captain commanding the 28th Illinois, surrendered to Major F.E. Whitfield. Colonel of the 18th Missouri surrendered to Lieutenant in the 9th Mississippi. So they capture quite a few here. Of course, the battle's not over, and they figure out, all right, we've still got one last line that we've got to attack, so they will turn around, and just as they've been on the extreme right flank of the Confederate Army all day, they will again be on the right flank. Oh, late turn. And it'll basically be somewhat similar in terms, it'll be Chalmers and Jackson side by side, and then of course we'll get Anderson and Gladden's brigade kind of filling in, but they'll then move across Deal Branch Ravine, and we'll do that too. Chalmers says it was then about 4 o'clock in the evening, after distributing ammunition, we received orders from General Bragg to drive the enemy into the river. My brigade, together with that of General Jackson, filed to the right and formed facing the river and endeavored to press forward to the water's edge, but in attempting to mount the last ridge, you can figure out how confused he is. He's not facing the river, he's facing parallel with the river, of course. Just like he talked about it a while ago, you know, everybody was facing westward in a line north to south and all that. You think we get confused out here, these guys are just as confused or more than we are. In attempting to mount the last ridge, well, we'll wait until we mount the last ridge to talk about
We're
that.
going to attempt to mount the
Attempt to mount, well, they mounted part of it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
When we come back, we're just coming back this way and go down the road.
Yes, we're going to come back pretty much same general area.
All right. I think Michelle was going to hang out, wait for us to come back.
That's
so
perfectly fine. If anybody else would like to,
It's time to do it.
maybe 5 or 30 or something. But yeah, you may see the eagles. That's the eagle's nest right there. That do that. Anybody else would like to hang out? We'll come back in the field or somewhere close to this vicinity. General Jackson filed to the right, and so-and-so attempting to mount the last ridge. We were met by fire from a whole line of batteries protected by infantry and assisted by shells from the gunboat. I don't think a group like this, we have to go into the detail of Grant's last line. We all know about, you know, falling back from station to station. The last line is on the other side of this ravine. 50 some odd pieces of artillery. The gunboats are firing up the ravine. The ravine kind of goes that direction and then this direction. So once you get on the other side, the gunboats are in your rear firing up. There are batteries placed on, there's a little spur of the ridge down, and they'll place batteries, Munch's battery, Margaret's battery there to fire into their flank. And so it's a pretty hot place to be. Interesting here, our men struggled vainly to ascend the hill, which was very steep, making charge after charge without success. Now, I think he's playing it up a little bit here. I don't know that there's charge after charge after charge. But continued to fight on the night, close hostilities on both sides during this engagement. Gage's battery was brought to our assistance, but suffered so severely that it was soon compelled to retire. They lose one gun. I think they roll it down into the ravine. It's Smith's report, and we don't need to get it out or anything, but he paints a very different picture in that they basically get to the top of the ridge and poke their heads over it and figure out this ain't no place we need to be after 13 hours of fighting. And I mean, there's no way we're going to take that last line. And he actually talks about they willingly turn before they get Beauregard's order or anything. And several others talk about this. In fact, I think it's in that letter that Chalmers wrote Reed, talking about we basically, I didn't get any order from Beauregard to turn around and come back. He basically says we on our own volition we turned and moved rearward. Same thing Jackson is saying, and Gladden, and well, Gladden's not here, but Gladden's commander, who's by this time Zach Dees maybe, Anderson's brigade. They're all making the decision before the order gets to them, and that of course does the day. So to fully experience Chalmers' path at Shiloh, we have to cross Deal Branch Ravine. We're going to go across. To follow his path further, we have to recross it back over. I'll tell you this time that we're going to go across and turn around and come right back, and go back to Wickerfield, pick up her, and go back to Wickerfield and start on the second day there. We got about a couple hours of daylight left. I think we can do it. We may kind of skimp on the second day just a little bit because we're running out of daylight. But we've done flashlights before. So without further talking,
On the phone? How much battery you got left on the phone?
90%. Really? I don't use it when it's power. I don't use
Too severely Gage's battery did. This was the 6th fight in which we had been engaged during the day. 6th fight in a whole bunch of ravines. And my men were too much exhausted to storm the batteries on the hill. But they were brought off in good order, formed in line of battle, and slept on the battlefield where I remained with them. They go back to Stewart's camp to sleep there. So that in and of itself is another mile and a half or so they made just this day. We're gonna go back there too. And then it goes in early the following morning. I received word that enemy was advancing, so and so. Alrighty, does everybody know where we are? Do we need to look at the map? The visitor center is just a few hundred yards just to our north there. As is Grant's last line, of course, between here and the visitor center. Alrighty, ready to retreat?
Question, is this the farthest advance of any part of the Confederate line right here? Is this as close as they got to Grant's last line?
Well, yeah, this brigade and several others. Let me show you where we're here's Chalmers right here. This was Gage that we just left and went across right there. This is Jackson. That's I get them mixed up. Gladden, I believe, and Anderson. So the 4 brigades do cross over. Chalmers is the only one that actually attempts to assault.
These other lighter,
those are Army of the Ohio, Almond's brigade,
okay.
And Hazen's brigade, and Bruce's brigade, second day stuff on Buell's army. That's where they bivouac. So technically, yeah, this one is farther than any. So this would be the high water mark, the angle at Gettysburg kind of thing. Leave it to the Mississippians. That is Preston Pond's brigade.
It's a little further.
Yeah, a little farther than here. So I had a military group here one time, and I was kidding about, when you really got tough work to do, leave it to the Mississippians, the only ones that can do it. And one of them said, they're the only ones stupid enough to try it. I didn't argue at that point, but yes, sir.
Well, we crossed 273 ravines this today.
I think it's 274, but not to be picky.
How many do the Confederates know about it? I don't think Gil Branch was on there.
No, they don't know about the smaller ravines that I actually argue. You're talking about the book. They know about the larger creek, Snake Creek, Owl Creek, Lick Creek, and then Johnson, of course, is talking about, I would fight them if they were me, and they can present no greater front between these two creeks than we can. The more men they crowd in there, the worse we can make farm. They know about those, but they don't know about the smaller set of creeks, Shiloh Branch and Locust Grove Branch down there, that caused so much problems. We saw it and slowed the advance down so much. They certainly don't know about these others that we've just crossed, and they don't know about Tillman Branch. This is Dill Branch, of course. On the other side of the battlefield is Tillman Branch, and their heads basically butt up with each other and flow opposite directions. So Grant's initial line in the first phase of the battle, Sherman's camps, Prentice's camps, are pretty much covered by Shiloh and Locust Grove branches. Grant's third line of the day, the third phase, is basically covered all the way across by Tillman Branch and Dill Branch. The second phase in the middle is the famous phase, the Hornet's Nest, Crossroads, Peach Orchard, and all that. Bear in mind also the way the terrain, I mentioned terrain earlier today, dictates the battle takes place. You basically compare the Shiloh battlefield to a triangle with the apex up at the Snake Creek Loop and the Tennessee River and so on, and the base of the triangle is the Bark Road that we saw so much of today. And so as you move northward, the triangle is constricting, and so as a result, as Grant is withdrawing, trading space for time throughout the day, his line is getting shorter and more compact, and as a result stronger, especially when you get behind ravines like this. On the second day, it plays right into Grant's strategy as well, because as you're moving forward and the Confederate Army now is falling back, what's the battlefield doing? It's getting wider, and the Confederates can't reach from side to side anymore because they've lost a lot of men, a lot of them are straggling and so on. So as a result, Grant is able to outflank the Confederates on the second day. So the terrain at Shiloh plays just right into Grant's hands, perfectly set up almost. You couldn't, if you were allowed to pick the way you wanted the battlefield to be laid out and to work for you, you couldn't hardly pick it any better. So no, they don't know about these secondary creeks, as I call them, but they play a really important role. In fact, I argue more of a role in terms of the tactical battle and who wins and who loses than the larger creeks that just set the parameters of the battlefield. So no, they don't know really any details about what they're facing here. Any other questions?
9 miles.
We're at 9 right now. Let's go for 10.
8.99.
We're going to cross Dill Branch a little farther now.
In addition to this, assistance with line, he's also getting closer and closer to this supply base.
Split in this area. You can see the creek going that way and another creek we're going to cross over here, and kind of a finger of land in the middle. And essentially Dill Branch is divided into 2 branches up here. So these uppermost brigades, Gladden and Anderson's brigades, as they move across, they've got 2 of these things to cross. And then of course the right of Nelson's division on the morning of April the 6th, as they move out, they've got 2 of these to cross as well. So it's not just the one farther down, but it's 2 of them. You can see that real vividly right here as you're standing kind of it's kind of the Lookout Mountain effect, you know, looking on both sides. But we'll continue on that list. Day 2 now. They got to sleep just a little bit. Truth be known, they didn't sleep much at any, probably no more than we did.
Down the road.
You're right. We ought to walk down there and walk back to here.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
To really get the full. You'll be right here.
Let's don't say
Run it down.
The day 2 kind of starts real squirrely for the Confederates, particularly here on this right flank. Chalmers is the first brigade up and moving, and they will actually move to the south side of Wicker Field here. This is about dawn or so. The action first starts over at Jones Field, slam on the other side of the battlefield, and that is of course Preston Pond's brigade at facing Lew Wallace's division and all that. And so all the firing is heard over on that other side of the battlefield. So Beauregard immediately starts to shift units to that side of the battlefield. And part of what is called is Hardee's troops over on this side, and Withers' division particularly will start to move on that side of the battlefield, and they'll actually call Chalmers as well. So Chalmers is getting prepared to withdraw and to move to the other side of the battlefield when he starts seeing Buell's troops appear on the other side of Wicker Field here. And there will be a firefight here. There's some great accounts of this. Ambrose Bierce, in fact, is in the 9th Indiana. There's their monument there, and he's commanding the skirmishers, and they start across the field, you know, and Chalmers actually says, I think it's something like, we wait till we see the whites of their eyes or something like that, to mention Andrew Jackson again. And they let, you know, they don't know they're there, and they let loose a volley, and the skirmishers take back, and they're huffing and puffing, and they're running back, and one little skirmisher runs up to his colonel and says, "Colonel, their enemy is in force on the other side of this field." And they're like, "Duh, we knew that." You know, we could tell that. So there's a pretty good little firefight here. I describe Chalmers as basically a Confederate guinea pig here on the right flank. He's kind of a jack of all trades, but at this point he's their guinea pig, and he's all that is holding back Buell's forces. They're moving forward until Withers, his division, can get moved back in here and take a position back at the Hamburg-Purdy line. So that'll be the main position back on the road up there, with Robertson's battery, McClung's battery, the Washington artillery, and Davis Wheatfield, and so on. And of course the rest of the morning, Buell's troops will move forward. There'll be quite a lot of fighting here. You see the artillery here with the yellow tablet. That's Terrell's battery. Mendenhall's battery, of course, is in the field here as well. Chalmers, and we're running out of daylight, of course, and we've still got a good ways to go, so we'll kind of expedite this a little bit. But Chalmers eventually will fall back to that Hamburg-Purdy line, and in fact, Chalmers will turn over command to Colonel Smith, Robert A. Smith, while he helps direct the larger line. At several points, Chalmers will actually outflank Ammen's position, and that's all in the eastern portion of the battlefield that we just came through. In fact, do you remember when we were looking for the 57th Illinois Monument, and Grace said, I keep calling her Gracie, I'm sorry, but she said, "There it is, an Indiana Monument." And I said, "No, that's second day stuff. That was 36th Indiana, and they were being flanked." In fact, they take some of Terrell's, I believe a caisson from Terrell's battery, as it has to fall back. But basically the fighting will come to a standstill with Buell's troops out in the field, the Peach Orchard area, same place that the fighting stood still the day before, and Chalmers' brigade back toward the Hamburg-Purdy Road. In fact, there's a tablet, and I think what we'll do, for the interest of time and so on, there's a tablet. I don't want to be dark, you know, getting back. Y'all don't need to do that. There's a tablet right in the wide, you know, where the river road here wise, and you go on the Hamburg-Purdy Road, and you go out to where we had lunch and so on. There's a tablet that was missing for years and years and years in this reorganization. So on the park, just put it back up, and it's right in the kind of the Y there. So that's basically their position. All of you know what I'm talking about. Let me read to you kind of what's going on here. Early on the following morning, I received notice the enemy was advancing, and was ordered by General Withers to fall back about half a mile to form on the right of General Jackson's brigade and follow him over to the left where it was supposed the fight would be. We fell back and waited for General Jackson to file past to the left. This is the movement going on to the other side of the battlefield. Intended to follow him as directed. Before we could get away, the enemy came charging rapidly upon us, and the fight of the second day commenced. We waited quietly until the enemy advanced within easy range, when we opened fire upon him and he fled. This is, of course, the action here. We then attempted to move by the left flank so as to follow General Jackson, but we were again attacked, in a fight of about 1 hour and a half ensued, from which we retired after having exhausted our ammunition. So Chalmers falls back after the fighting here. It's in this area that Major F.E. Whitfield was severely wounded in the hip and brought to the rear. Whitfield is in the 9th Mississippi. This will be important because the Lieutenant Colonel commanding the 9th Mississippi will be wounded, mortally wounded, up on the Hamburg-Purdy Road there. And the regiment won't have any field officers then, because Chalmers is the colonel, of course, and he's been appointed brigadier general. So Whitfield and Rankin are both down. Our ammunition wagons not being in hand, we fell back first camp. They were taken from the enemy when we found an abundant supply and appropriate caliber. And then he goes through talking about turning over command to Colonel Smith and so on. We won't go into all of that detail, but well, actually, yeah, let's talk about this a little bit. He talks about forming the line back on the road, and believing that one bold charge might change the fortunes of the day, I called upon my brigade to make one more effort, but they seemed too much exhausted to make the attempt, and no appeal seemed to arouse them. At last, as a last resort, I seized the battle flag from the color bearer of the 9th Mississippi Regiment, called on them to follow. With a wild shout, the whole brigade rallied to the charge, those Mississippians, and we drove the enemy back and reoccupied our first position of the morning. Where's that? It's right here. So they must have moved forward all the way to the southern part of Wicker Field. So you can see the time and distance here that things are moving back and forth, which we held until the order to retreat received when we fell back in good order, the enemy not daring to pursue. Colonel Wheeler of the 19th Alabama, here we go again, Wheeler, was with a small remnant of his regiment fighting with the Mississippians on foot himself and bearing the colors of his command. And this is where he talks about a brave commander, Lieutenant Colonel William A. Rankin, who fell mortally wounded after having his men fearlessly leading his men fearlessly through the whole of the first and second day. And then he goes on to talk about his various staff officers and so on that he gives recognition to. So that in a nutshell is Chalmers' position. Actually, I tell you what, just to actually it'll save time, but to get us on Chalmers' position, let's just go up the road here and we'll cut across from the Hamburg-Purdy Road back to Prentice's camps. We'll cut through the area, we'll go back in where we were almost today, where the magazine is, the powder magazine. When it gets dark, we can go on a nighttime hunt for that as well. But that'll get us back to Prentice's line, and then we had talked about doing some stuff in Lost Field, but I don't know what, that's up to y'all, whatever you want when we get there. But
That's that tablet, 402.
yes, that's that tablet.
402.
State Park.
So those you keep them scoring home.
Yeah, we'll see it as we go by. All right, any questions?
Because they have to.
How did I get up? That's a good question.
Right there staring at us. Yeah. Pick up the amazing thing about that. I grew up in Central Alabama, and when I was a kid, you couldn't find the deer.
Into this area and just kind of sit here for the next 5 hours or so. Of course, Gladden is hitting down, Adams is hitting down, Zach Dees is now the commander, and they actually form a square out here because they're worried about some cavalry, and that's their position tablet here. We're going to continue on down to Prentice's headquarters and Prentice's camps, where Chalmers' brigade will go into action again with the artillery that was on that line. Robertson's battery, for instance, there's a great letter, the Dent letter in the Alabama Department of Archives and History, in fact, that talks about we took our position in the exact same place that we held on the first day, immediately after we took their camps. And there's a tablet out there for the first day position, and of course they take position there again. Truth be known, there really should be a tablet. We were just right out there earlier today when Chalmers moves forward and engages the peach orchard, of course, and then turns around and goes back. They could have put a tablet there to mark Gladden moves forward to here, Chalmers moves forward to that point, which there's not, but there could have been. So. Prentice's camps are just to our south here, and of course Chalmers' brigade will fall back to here. Never really be tested. Nelson's division and Crittenden along the Eastern Corinth Road will not really push past the Hamburg-Purdy Road, so they're not really tested here, so they just kind of hold on until they get the withdrawal order later in the day, 2:30, 3 o'clock or so that afternoon, and then they take off. So that's pretty much the ending of the fighting for Chalmers. Pretty much the ending of our tour. We just walk back to the cars now. We were going to do a little bit of something through Lost Field if we had some extra daylight, but I think it'll be nearly dark by the time we get there. We'll save that for another day. So. All right, let's head on. Go through the woods and save just a little time, but I think it could be quicker and so on. And they're talking about putting it up as early as next year and dedicating it, I believe, sometime they say between April and October. I think is what they said. So I'm excited to see the Mississippi Monument now. I didn't know that was up there, but that's obviously
where the Mississippi Monument is supposed to be.
The before and after.
Before and after.
Exactly. Huh? Well, the 6th Mississippi charged across Ray Field, the Bloody Six, of course, and they're the ones that go into action with the 425 and lose 300 of the 425 and so on.
They're understanding, but they're not
mentioned
crazy,
the
right?
Secession Convention delegates and all that this morning. Colonel Thornton, who was wounded in the field there, was a member of the secession convention as well.